Here we go. Take number 37. Oh. Do I do this camera or this camera? I'm using two cameras now, and now it's all confusing. What's new with me, though? Hey, everybody. What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the Brock Talk podcast. Real talks with a real dude. That's literally what it is. I don't know if you want to call this season 2 or whatever, but there's been a bit of a hiatus, obviously, between episodes. I tried to do multiple other podcasts. I went really off the rails with one, and I kind of fell off the map with another one as far as the career things go. The substance matter just wasn't there for me anymore. And now I'm trying to sit here and I'm trying to figure out, what do I want just my podcast to be? What do I want the Brock Talk to be about? Obviously, we talk about life here. I talk about my life and my circumstances. I talk about things that I've been through and things that I'm going through, and I hopefully give a different perspective to people out there that are maybe going through something similar. Do I want that to still be what this is? Absolutely. But I also want it to be more, I want it to have more depth. I want it to be more broad. Not too broad. I think that was some things that I was dealing with in the past, was I was trying to make things too broad, and not have a niche at all. I was like, let's just do everything. And that's a hard thing to stick. That's a hard thing to find and contain. So what is the Brock Talk now? Obviously, it's just a real talk with a real person, which is myself. And now I want to create it and let it be more of a discussion. Not just me rambling about things, not me just talking my mind, though that's going to be a part of it. I want it to be a discussion. So I'm going to start to bring people in, people that I find interesting, people that I think has a cool story, or maybe they have a different perspective on something that I have. So that's what we're going to try to do. And this podcast is just, this episode, I should say, is just explaining that. And honestly, it's just me kind of talking out my thoughts, talking out my ideas. I try to write things down. I try to really be scriptive with things as far as my ideas go. And I find I think too much, and I think too hard, and I overthink a lot. So what this episode all is just me trying to process these things and not lose out on anything, because that's what I do a lot. I think, go, and things just escape me at times. I can't write as fast as I think. Sometimes I can't even talk as fast as I think, and things escape me and I lose things. So this episode is me trying to rein in all that, trying to contain it, and also try to describe to the audience, which is you guys, what I want, What do we want? What does people want out of anything? That's the idea, and that's kind of what this episode is about, is just discussing my wants going forward in life and with this podcast, because that's honestly what the Brock Talk is, just what I'm dealing with, what I'm going through, and hopefully it radiates out into a way where you can take from it, we can take things from it, and grow together. So this is the podcast. This is the Brock Talk. Real talks with real people, myself, and the guests that are included. What I want to hear from you guys going forward is what kind of guest, occupations or interest or people. Real people, I'm not in a position where I can bring on celebrities or very fascinating, high-profile people. I need to find real people in a real community of mine that has a good story to tell. We can get a good rapport, and we can just make things happen. I have some ideas. I have some things worked out. But this first episode of season 2 or whatever the hell you want to call it, I want to get some feedback from you guys. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you want to be interviewed? Do you have a story that is interesting, is captivating, and you wish to hear it, or you think maybe people would want to hear it? Maybe this is something that you've been thinking about doing, but you don't know how. And that's kind of one thing with the podcast I want to start to do. I want to start to provide an outlet for people to tell their stories. This is a hard thing to do. This production shit is hard. I get it, especially if you want it done right. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to figure out. So hopefully I can take the burden off of you and you have an opportunity to tell your story without really dealing with any of that stuff. If it's something that you are like reserved about, if it's something that, again, you have an idea, you have at least somewhat of interest in it, but maybe you're a little timid, you're a little scared, let's figure that out. So hit me up, let me know, say, hey, this is something that I would love to do. I just have some concerns with it or reservations with it or whatever. Let's work it out. Let's figure it out. That way we can tell a great story that is yours. Maybe if you're someone who does like telling stories in the first place and you just want to chat, you got something interesting to say. Here we go. Let's do it here. Let's do it on the pod. That's what I want. This is what it's going to be now. So yeah, if you got a story to tell, whether you're conflicted about sitting on a podcast chair and then sitting next to a microphone or not, let's do it, Let's figure this out. So if you want to, like right off the bat, say, hey, let's do this, hit me up. If you are somewhat interested but you have questions, let me know, and we can do this thing together. Because if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the topic of this first episode after the update, after what I just talked about. So again, that's more of like an update on what the Brock Talk's going to start to be about. I don't have a guest with this this episode. I don't have a guest with this episode. So I'm going to do one of my big brain philosophical based ones, and we'll get the guest coming in the foreseen future. So what I just said, right? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I believe that quote and I believe that sentiment very truthfully. But I also have a little bit of devil's advocate to it as well, because it's not about just going fast alone on your own. And it's also not about just going far together. It's all about the substance of the collective of people, whether it's yourself going fast. In what direction is that fast going? And then when you're going far with people, what collective of people is that? Because that plays a big role. You can't just smash a group of people together and they don't gel well and expect them to still have this outcome of getting far together. But there are times where you want to go might not be the direction where everyone else wants to go. Sometimes you do have to jet off on your own and do your own thing and figure your own things out to truly know who you are and to get a sense of who you are. And then that way, when you do come into a collective of people, you know what you're bringing to the table. You can figure out what they're bringing to the table, and then you can make that process of going farther together happen. So I've been finding myself in my everyday life doing this, really being more reserved than normal. I'm a reserved person just as it is, but over the last 6 months or so, a couple months actually, I've kind of cut a lot of people off. I've cut a lot of things out of my life, and I've really settled down in trying to really figure out who I am, and that never stops. I should say that, we always say like, oh, we got to once we find ourselves and figure ourselves out, then things will start to happen. But the reality of it is we never truly figure ourselves out in a complete sense. So we are going to always spend life doing that in some facet. So you should always continue to grow and find yourself and retell your story every single day. But for the last couple months, like I said, I've really been doing that very vigorously. I stepped away from a lot of things. I went out on my own with my own business. I cut everything else out of my life. I don't want to say I trimmed the fat because that's a bad connotation, but in some way I just got rid of a lot of distractions, and I've kind of just boxed myself into this corner. I boxed myself into a corner of mirrors, I should say. That's a better reference. I boxed myself into a corner of mirrors so I could really, truly see for myself who I was looking at. Who am I? What am I trying to do? Who am I trying to be? So I left the high school. I left the gym. I started working out in a separate place. I just completely, I went rogue. And I put myself into that corner, and I'm just figuring things out. And I'm still there, I still got shit to figure out, like we all do. Back to what I'm trying to say is that quote of going fast alone, going far together, it is very true, but it has to be true in the right context. So don't be afraid of stepping away and self-reflecting and trying to figure things out, or maybe do things for yourself. I find that so many times that people think we need to rely on certain people or rely on certain things in our lives, rely on a job or things like this. And to me, that's complete bullshit. You shouldn't be afraid to try to figure things out on your own. And then when you realize that, okay, this is something that takes more than myself, that's good. That's just you just spinning the wheels and then coming to a better understanding. Because there's a lot of things that there are out there that we maybe can do on our own, and we don't have to rely on people. There's a dependency on certain elements. Now, I don't mean to be dependent completely, because again, it's all going to come back to that. We can go farther together. But we have to all, as a collective, know the individuals in our circle in order to get to that right direction, that far direction. So we can go far, but where is that far going to be? It's like two sides of the map. They're both the same furthest distance. One is just a better destination than the other. So definitely have that in your head of be a collective, be a community, go far, go together. But know where you're going and know why you're going. That's a big deal. Because I've done it. I've done it multiple times where I've been in a situation where like I'm going in a certain direction, and I have this circle around me, and it's not the circle I want to be in. But I could say to myself, all right, you know what? Just got to deal with it. Just got to figure it out. And sooner or later it'll come to fruition, and the good things will start to happen. And that's not always the case. We have to understand that. That is not always the case. That destination might not be the best destination for us. Just know who you are. Figure out who you are. Don't be afraid to step back or step away to find yourself and fill your bucket. Let your bucket runneth over, and then that overflow will fall onto other people. Yeah, that's all I got, guys. That's all I got. Hopefully there was some structure to this. Hopefully I had some inclination. God, I need to stop trying to say words that I don't fully know. I have some inclination. That's a damn word, isn't it? Anywho, hopefully there was some structure to this. Hopefully you got something out of it. Like I said in the beginning when I was updating you guys on what this podcast is, reach out to me. If you have a story, if you have something to say or tell, let me help you. And that way we can help each other. I can give you an outlet. You can give me a sense of satisfaction, sitting in a podcast, because I love this stuff, man. I've done a lot of episodes of many different varieties, not just this podcast. You guys know my other podcasts that I've done. And I love it. And again, it's all about learning from mistakes and figuring out who you are. That way you can give the best product of yourself to other people. So hit me up if you want to be on the podcast, if you want to be a guest. If you like the direction where we're going, make sure you are following along. Okay, you follow on Spotify. That's where we do the audio versions. Or go follow, subscribe on YouTube. That's the two platforms I'm going to be using and I have used. So follow on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and then take this, put it on your social medias, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, put it on Twitter. Get the word out there, especially if you want to be a guest, You don't want to come on as a guest to a podcast that no one's listening to. So let's build it up. Let's get the audience, and then let's tell our stories. So that's going to be it for the podcast, guys. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.